You know, Ronnie Platt is probably one of the nicest guys I've ever interviewed. He is the lead singer of Kansas and has been doing an amazing job since 2014. In this, our entire interview with Ronnie, we talk about all the bands that inspired him, how lucky he feels to be in the band Kansas, but we cover a lot of ground with Ronnie Platt on Rock History Book. The band Kansas was formed in Topeka, Kansas in 1973. They're a quintessential American rock band known for their progressive rock sound and intricate compositions. The original lineup included Kerry Livgren, Steve Walsh, Phil Ehart, Rich Williams, Robbie Steinhardt, and David Hope. Their breakthrough came in 1976 with the album Leftoverture, featuring the hit single Carry On Wayward Son. You couldn't grow up in the 70s without hearing that tune. The follow-up, Point of No Return, including the timeless classic, Dust in the Wind. Kansas is celebrated for their complex arrangements and powerful lyrics, blending rock and classical influences. Over decades, they've maintained a dedicated fan base and a major influence on the rock music landscape. I ask all the vocalists the same damn question, and you're getting the same damn... How do you keep it in tune? What do you do?
I'll be fine. Uh, you know, I guess it's clean living. I never drank. I never did drugs. I never smoked. Why am I suddenly so depressed? No, and I've always said the key is sleep, which I always cut myself short on, but I try to sleep because sleep is the number one for me anyway, regenerating my voice. And just the voice is a fickle thing. If it doesn't want to work, it won't work. And there's been, it's funny, I've said many times that there have been times when I've felt great and I'm on my way to a show and I'm just can't wait to get up there. And the pipes aren't, kicking in the way I expected. And then there were also times when, God, I felt run down and I'm feeling tired and my voice felt raspy. Get up on stage and I'm singing like a bird. So voice is a very fickle thing.
When did you know you had something here? What was the point? Like, were you singing as a kid?
Okay, I'm going to give you a very deep story here. And my house in Bellwood, where I grew up, it was a tiny, tiny house. I think this house was probably 800 square feet, including the basement. I mean, this house was tiny. It was two bedrooms upstairs that were people's walk-in closets are bigger than the bedrooms in this house. And I have an older sister. She's 4 years older than me. And, we started getting to that age where my sister wanted her own room. And we had a finished basement. And I was probably, 7, 8 years old and moved into maybe 9. And I moved into the basement and I would put this old AM FM clock radio that had a sleep timer. I would put on, like in Chicago, it was like WCFL or WLS. We're talking back in the day when you would hear like a Led Zeppelin song, and then you would hear a Jackson 5 song.
Yeah.
That was really, there was no streamlined genre like there is today. And I would sing myself to sleep. And I remember my mom and my sister saying, "Hey, we heard you singing last night. You sound pretty good." So, and just, started in school choirs really young, probably 5th and 6th grade school choirs. And then I got into like barbershop quartets and octets, and then choruses in junior high school and high school madrigal singers, which was very very eclectic, like 16th century a cappella music, and it was great ear training. And so that's really where it started. And of course, getting into high school and getting into a band with friends and stuff. And I actually started. I actually started on trombone when I was like in fifth grade. My sister brought home a guitar, stole her guitar after probably a day, and a boyfriend of hers looks at me one day and he goes, "Wow, you look like you'd be a good bass player." A week later, I had a bass guitar sitting in front of my sister's Panasonic stereo, the one with the turntable, the tuner, and the 8-track player all in one, you know, and I just would put on the albums she had, Foghat in Chicago, and all these, classic bands, and I just would play my bass. Oh my God, Frampton Comes Alive. I played bass to that till no end. And just getting into bands in high school, playing bass and singing. And it was so funny. Uh, a couple of my earlier bands, my friends would go, "Hey, you should be the singer because you're a better singer than your singer is." And it just took off from there.
Obviously, with what you've said, I don't think anybody's surprised that a lot of people you grew up with, if you run into them, they're probably not surprised that you're the lead singer of Kansas. I mean, you were the singer guy.
Uh, I worked at, I started, I think, when I was 14, 15 years old. I started at a restaurant in Hillside, Illinois called Q's Pizza. And, started as a busboy, but they had me making pizzas and cooking in the back pretty soon. And it's funny, I've gotten messages from all the people that I used to work with there. They're like, we knew you were going to make it into a big band.
Ah,
You were always in a band, we always enjoyed listening to you sing and stuff. So it was pretty neat to hear back from those people. I mean, when I was, you know, good Lord, I mean, 15, 16, 17 years old, so someone had some foresight back then.
I'm aware of Kansas as a teen.
Well, gosh, when Wayward Son came out, you couldn't not hear it on the radio, and uh I, it was just such a powerful song. uh it grabbed my attention then. And God, I was a huge Kansas fan, a huge Rush fan, Genesis fan, Yes fan. I really was gravitated towards the prog rockers, you know. But uh, here's where I'm gonna default a little bit.
Okay.
I really fell in love also with the bands that had great singers. And I remember working at Q's Pizza, my first car, a Mercury Montego. I had a cassette of Journey Evolution, and I played the heck out of that album. And just, between Steve Walsh and Steve Perry, uh, Lou Graham of Foreigner, uh, Brad Delp of Boston. I mean, these guys, they all were my heroes, and guys that I tried to emulate. And just from listening to all those guys and, taking a piece from here, a piece from there, just I developed my own voice. And I'm lucky that I gravitated towards guys that have my physical makeup, because I've always said, uh, hey, I love AC/DC, but if I sing AC/DC for 2 songs, I'm done for the night. That's
Yeah.
not my physical makeup. So to have my physical makeup be in line with what I love, that music that Kansas, that Boston, that journey. In my cover bands, played a lot of sticks. You know, it just worked out good for me and developed my voice
Yeah.
over the years. And uh, my mindset, even back being a teenager, uh, I always had the mindset is I want to be better than my last show. And I kind of developed that work ethic when it comes to my voice. God knows I didn't have it in other areas, but when it came to singing, there was something subconsciously in me that I took it very, very seriously. And listening to Steve Walsh and listening to Steve Perry, it's like I just zeroed in on them. I mean, I listened to their breathing, and it taught me how to sing, even outside of being in, choirs and having a high school music teacher, Mr. Smalley, who was a great singer, who helped develop my singing. It just, everything fell into place.
You named him. Thank you. I know I sometimes have to ask the vocalists that I talk to, and I talk to a lot of folks. There's that thing about honoring the people from your past who sort of helped you get to the bug, which helped you work, which helped you get into that room.
Absolutely. And my seventh and eighth grade music teacher, Miss McQueen, I mean, I could close my eyes and picture them. Fred Smalley, my music teacher in high school, big, robust guy, uh, real strong voice, and, taught me how to do triads on the piano and work my voice up and down. Stuff that has stuck with me my entire life.
How's Phil doing?
Fantastic. Just talked to him 2 days ago, and this is absolutely crazy. So he has a heart attack on a Tuesday. Wednesday morning, I get a call from JR, our road manager, and he calls me, Ronnie, what are you doing? I'm just sitting here having a cup of coffee. And he's like, okay, I'm going to put Rich on the phone. I'm like, uh-oh, three-way call. This isn't good. And they told me that Phil had a heart attack, and it's like, oh my God, my heart sank, and just, it took my breath away. So this was Wednesday morning. Thursday afternoon, late Thursday afternoon, Phil calls me and he's at home. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, well, I'm just sitting at home. Thought I'd give you a buzz. I'm like, how are you feeling? He's like, oh, I feel great. What? You were just in the hospital 2 days ago with a heart attack. Yeah, I put in a couple of stents, felt great. Friday, he calls me. John, this is crazy. Friday afternoon, he calls me. Hi, Phil. What are you doing? Oh, I'm just playing the drums. What? What? Really? 3 days after a heart attack, you're sitting at your drum set. So, but I'm just tippy tapping on the electric set. I'm not going wild or anything, and just wanted to make sure, because I guess they went in through his wrist, with whatever they do, the procedure. Yeah. He wanted to make sure his wrist was okay. But I just talked to him 2 days ago, doing fantastic, energy in his voice, 100% recovery. Just has to take it easy for a while, let things settle in. And he's telling me I'm dying to get back out. So it's only a matter of time.
I asked Tom Brislin this, and I was talking to Rich. I had an interview with Rich where he's in his bed. He's lying down in his bed, and his wife, I think, beside him. He's just hanging out. We'll talk about the Rich thing with you getting into Kansas in a second, but I was telling him, I says, I have mixed feelings about certain bands. Is it still Kansas or is not? I talked to Tom, and I said, Tom, you're breathing new life into a band and maintaining the integrity of what Kansas, the last two albums to me, and I've said this publicly, I said, this is Kansas. This is Kansas. The last two albums have music on it, which made me love Kansas, but it's also current. And, people look at the Harrisons just sports teams going, well, they're not the guys who won the Stanley Cup in the NHL, but at the same time, people come and they're still enjoying the music, and music evolves. What's your take on all of that?
That's how I equate it. It's like, hey, I'm from Chicago, and everybody always refers to the '85 Bears, how great they were, But you know what? The team still goes on. There's new players, but it's still the Chicago Bears. And just like in any sports, they're drafting the best of the best. And you talk about Tom Brislin. Are you kidding? The guy is a monster. Are you familiar with his resume?
I interviewed him. Yeah, I talked to him.
Wolf's keyboard player, Debbie Harry's keyboard player,
John Anderson
toured with Yes. Are you kidding me? And then Joe Denizon on violin now. Oh my God. It's still Kansas. You can't help but when you become a member of Kansas, you get into that Kansas vein. It's like that blood starts to rush through your system and you become part of Kansas. Me, it's a little different because I've been such a hardcore Kansas fan since a teenager. And you go on YouTube and you look at my cover bands from the 80s, and we're doing not Point of No Return, not Wayward Son. We're doing deep cut stuff. We're playing The Wall. We're playing Play the Game. We're playing Right Away. Miracles Out of Nowhere. So I really had a running start into the band, but everyone in Kansas, you become part of Kansas, and it just, the band is going to continue regardless. I hope the band continues long after I'm gone. And another way to equate it is, why are symphonies still playing Mozart and Beethoven? They've been gone, a couple hundred years, and we're still playing their music. I hope it's the same way with Kansas.
When you left home, Mom and Dad, I'm leaving. I'm taking my pots and pans. I'm out of here. What was in your record collection then?
Well, I left home pretty early. I think I was like 19 or 20 in there. I had a lot of Rush. I had a lot of Kansas. I mean, if you were to look at my album collection back then, the stack of Kansas would be that big. The stack of Rush would be that big. Genesis would be that big. Again, the prog rock stuff. Huge Yes, my band Drama that was together from 87 to 90, we played 95% Yes music. So big Yes fan, but also a lot of Journey, a lot of Foreigner, Boston, Boston's first two albums, only two, but God, I thought Brad Delp's voice was angelic, just simply angelic. And those were the albums that I had back then.
The members of Kansas include Phil Ehart, who's been there since '73 on drums. He's also their manager. Rich Williams on guitar, an original member. Bill Greer is their bassist, has been in Kansas since 1985. Ronnie Platt on lead vocals from 2014 to present. Zach Risby, lead and rhythm guitar, was with Kansas from 2016 to 2020, then came back in 2024. Tom Brislin, who's also been with the band Yes, 2018, and Joe Denizon joined in 2023. Classic members of Kansas, Carrie Lifgren, big songwriter for the band, lead and rhythm guitars, keyboards, synthesizers, and backing vocals. He was in the lineup from 73 to 83, then 90 to 91, 99 to 2000, and a guest in 2023. David Hope, bass and backing vocals from 73 to 83 and 1990 to 2000. He was also a guest in 2023. Robbie Steinhardt, who passed away in 2021, the violinist of the band, for their signature hits like Dust in the Wind and Carry On Wayward Son. From 73 to 83, from 97 to 2006. Steve Walsh, the voice of Kansas during their heyday. Lead and background vocals, keyboards, synthesizers, vibraphone, and percussions. From 73 to 81 and from 85 to 2014. John Elefante, also a lead vocalist, from 82 to 84. Steve Morris, known for Dixie Dregs, was their lead and rhythm guitarist from 85 to 89 and again in 91. He was also known for his stint in the band Deep Purple. Greg Robert was the keyboardist from 87 to 97. David Ragsdale played violin for Kansas from 91 to 97 and 2006 to 2023. And David Mannion, keyboardist from 2014 to 2018. You know, when Brad died, and not only the way he died, which we don't have to go into, but when Brad died, and I've talked to Barry Goudreau, I've talked to Jim Mastia, their first drummer, and there was just something, I remember I was surprised that hit me, not as hard as John Lennon, but when Brad died, that was like the end of something that I wasn't aware of. I was just crushed.
Yeah, because I think you didn't, well, you didn't expect John Lennon either, but I mean, it really was a shock when Brad died, and the way that he died was shocking. Boy, I couldn't tell you how many times I've listened to just that beginning part of Something About You. You know, the song, just that very beginning where his voice is angelic on that. It's just, wow. And not to mention the rest of the song is phenomenal. But boy, what a sad thing.
Is it Rich who facilitated, or you called Rich to say, hey, I'd like to be considered? Tell me that story. I know you've told it a million times, but I don't own those other clips.
Right. You know, talk about classic rock bands. Longtime friend and fan of mine, Dina, texted me one day and said, did you see this? And she knew that I was just a die-hard Kansas fan. And she sent me, this is Steve Walsh's press release of his retirement, Kansas announcing the retirement of Steve Walsh. And Dina happens to be Dennis DeYoung's niece, formerly of Styx.
Chicago.
Yeah, you know, the Chicago connection here. But just on a whim, I messaged Rich Williams because we were friends on Facebook. He accepted my friend request because he saw me sing with Shooting Star. I was the lead singer of Shooting Star from 2007 to 2011. And I messaged him on a Wednesday. Thursday, I came home from work, checked my messages. There's a message from Rich Williams. Ronnie, we're about to go on stage in Houston. If you get this within the next hour and a half, give me a call. Oh my God. Call Rich. We have a real nice conversation. He's like, can Phil call you tomorrow? We're about to go on stage. Can we talk to you tomorrow? And I'm like, absolutely. I talked to Phil on Friday. He asked me if I could fly to Atlanta because I'm just outside of Chicago. Can you fly to Atlanta on Monday and meet with Rich and I? And I'm like, absolutely. So met with them in Atlanta, flew right back home after a 3-4 hour meeting, was at work the very next day, checked my email from Phil Ehart. Congratulations, you got the job. The band is pumped. Let's get to work. And it's been a million miles an hour ever since.
What was the first sit down with the band? What was that like?
Walked into the rehearsal studio. I mean, it was right to work, and maybe my apprehension of, oh, holy good God, I'm the lead singer of Kansas. I'm walking into my first Kansas rehearsal. I talked to David Ragsdale before. I met him before, but met Billy there, and no kidding, it was about a whopping 2 minutes before I felt like I was just, you know, rehearsing with a bunch of buddies. It was that comfortable, that fast.
But
And
let me interrupt you. Isn't that part of just doing the work? I always say I say this in every interview. You do the work, you get in the room, and there's muscle memory, and you know what you're doing. And by then you've been a singer, like a lead singer for so many years. Like that is that's part of who you really are.
right, and that's I really feel I had a good running start because my cover band Ara, we opened up for everyone, uh, huge national acts, 38 Special, Paul Rogers. We opened up for Survivor, God knows how many times. So I really had a good running start. The guy that I can't fathom is Tommy DiCarlo, who now sings for Boston, who went from Home Depot to fronting Boston and never really was in a band. Oh my God, that scares me to death. I had a really good running start, and of course, being a huge Kansas fan, really gave me a huge advantage.
By the way, through the years, who has surprised you? You've met a lot of people through what you've done.
Of the iconic rock stars that
Yeah,
I've met,
or anybody that.
it's so funny for me to it, it, it's surreal because I've played so many bands' music through the years, whereas, you know, I played Styx, I played Boston, and to meet these guys now, we do a show with Styx and Don Felder, and I'm sitting at the catering table across the table from JY and Tommy Shaw, and I'm like, this is kind of surreal. Uh, but I've never really been like starstruck until I'll admit I was starstruck when we played one of the cruises and Roger Daltrey was on. You know, to me, that's that upper echelon tier of just rock superstardom. And he couldn't have been nicer. And I mean, I didn't get to have a conversation with him. We actually just passed each other in a stairwell. And I said, and I was just so starstruck and like, Mr. Daltrey, how are you? And he's, oh, mate, you sound great. He said something really nice to me. And it's like, I just passed Roger Daltrey. I just rubbed elbows with Roger Daltrey. Are you kidding me? Really? Yeah. I mean, I was really starstruck by Roger, and he blew me away. I went to both his shows on the ship, and he was fantastic.
You worked with Van, Steve, and Ron from Shooting Star.
Yeah.
They're one of those bands that fell through the cracks. The people who were fans paid close attention. They, like anybody else, had a lot of personnel changes. What was your experience like with them?
The one thing that was disappointing is we didn't do nearly as many shows as I would have loved to have done with Shooting Star. And it's like we would do a good run of 6, 7, 8 shows and then not go out for 2 months. Do 5, 6, 7 shows, not go out for 3 months. It was disappointing.
Was it because was Van sick while you were with them?
No, no. Van was in good health when I was with them. It's a hard thing to explain. It's like we would shoot out of the starting blocks and then just do a mild pace. And it was really up and down. So, and really disappointing because I loved that music. I remember getting the album Hang On for Your Life, and I played that to death.
Great band.
Yeah, great band. Gary West had that unique voice. Really was the characterization of that band. Uh, Nothing to take away from Keith Mitchell. When Keith Mitchell joined the band, they started go changing their genre a little bit. They started going almost kind of hair metal when Keith joined the band. So it was a departure from that original shooting star type of music. But all of it was just great songwriting. Van and Gary were great songwriters, and I wish we would have done 100 shows a year.
Genesis. What is your sweet spot with Genesis? Where's Ronnie's favorite albums?
Oh, Trick of the Tail, love Trick of the Tail, Winds and Withering. Oh God,
That's Phil's first two albums with as
yeah,
a vocalist.
first two just uh I'll admit, back in the day, I wasn't a huge Peter Gabriel fan, but as time went on, I began to appreciate Gabriel more and more. It's like he had to come around with me. And boy, the documentaries on Genesis that you could see, they're really interesting. You know that uh, that really was an interesting story too, and I don't think people realize what progressive great drummer Phil Collins was. Really, his drumming is overshadowed by his singing.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, but boy, that core Genesis, that then my God, was it Steve Hackett just played around me recently,
I've
but
interviewed him like 7 times.
yeah, yeah, I have yet to meet him, but
What about Rush? I just talked to Terry Brown a little while ago, the producer, and
oh my God.
he gave me some great and Bill Simzik, the Eagles producer. Remember your sweet spot with Rush?
It's funny. I don't talk about Rush enough. Uh, and I know Geddy Lee has a voice that a lot of people, you either love it or leave it. I've always loved Geddy's voice, and it's funny, the album they give the least credit to, A Caress of Steel. I think Geddy Lee's voice is just amazing on that record. But what really got me with Rush, the first Rush album I got was A Farewell to Kings. And I played the death out of that album. I played the bass up and down to that album. Uh, uh, then Moving Pictures, you know, and then getting those albums and going back and get the earlier. That's when I went back, got Fly By Night, got Caress of Steel, got the first album with John Rutsey on it. Neil wasn't even in the band yet, and just God, what a love affair I had with Rush. And it's funny I don't talk about my love for Rush uh, in too many interviews. It just doesn't come up. But being a bass player myself, heck, I I went and bought a Rickenbacker, because of Geddy Lee and Chris Squire. I had to have a Rickenbacker. So
I just read this thing on people criticizing Geddy Lee playing with Rush with Yes at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm going, what was wrong with his bass playing? I don't think there was anything wrong with it.
criticizing what?
Criticizing Geddy Lee playing bass as a guest because Chris was gone on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when he played with Yes. I'm going, what?
Are you freaking kidding me? I would have given anything to be there to see that. I mean, with Chris being gone, could it be a more perfect person to fill in for Chris? To me, that's iconic. Amazing. How can anyone criticize that?
The music of Kansas has been described as symphonic, incorporating orchestral elements and creating that grand, sweeping sound. Progressive, their complex song structures and innovative compositions align with the hallmarks of progressive rock. Of course, Kansas are epic. The best example of that would be their most popular song, Carry On Wayward Son. Like Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody, Carry On Wayward Son was one of those songs that people literally stared at the speaker when they first heard it for the first time in the 70s. Lyrical, their music often features profound and poetic lyrics, exploring deep themes and storytelling. Melodic, Kansas is known for their strong, memorable melodies that's always resonated with listeners. Fusion, they blend elements of rock, classical, folk music that's popular and eclectic at the same time. Theatrical, their sound has a dramatic flair, evoking vivid imagery and emotions, and of course timeless. Despite their peak in the 1970s, Kansas music remains relevant and loved, appealing to multiple generations. I think part of the reason that I liked Kansas as much as I liked Yes. Okay, I liked Yes a little bit more, but I think that there's a part in Genesis too. There is that kind of cerebral journey that the music kind of takes you in spite of yourself sometimes. But for
Right.
you, what was it about Yes that grabbed you?
Oh God, exactly what you just said. That cerebral flow. Geez, close to the edge. Uh, it's funny when I met my bandmates, Chaser, back in 1982. One of the first songs that I learned was Siberian Khatru, and I'm like, this is pretty intense stuff. This is intense stuff, and it's just, I mean, I just got wrapped up in Yes stuff big time. And then I went from my band Chaser that did a lot of Yes. I went to a band that did all Yes. We did Close to the Edge, the entire song. We did, I mean, Starship Trooper, Yours Is No Disgrace, you know, and it's so funny. I remember playing when we would play with other bands, when you had a set list of Yes music and you were playing for an hour, you'd have like 6 songs, because they're all 6, 7, 8, 9 minute long songs. And I would look at the other band's set list and there'd be like 24 songs on their set list. And I'm like, that's strange. And I'm like, oh, well, those songs are only 3 minute long songs. And here we're playing these, Starship Trooper, these 9 minute epics. It was funny.
I always say I would never have picked John Anderson for that band, and I would have been wrong. I'm more of like your type of singer. I like the powers. That's to me the type of singer. If I could sing, I'd want to be. That's why I like Brad Delp. That's why I like Steve Perry. But for you, what was it about John? Why did that guy with this certain type of voice fit in that band so well?
Uh, you, you know, Again, it's like Geddy Lee and Rush. It's that he has that unique characterization that over time, has become the identity of that band. And I'll tell you, I think it was 78, 78 or 79. I saw Yes in the round at the International Amphitheater in Chicago. And John Anderson was singing, and his voice was angelic. I never heard such highs in that voicing. So just clear, extreme highs. And I'm just like, is he singing falsetto? Is he not singing falsetto? It's kind of hard. He has that unique timbre in his voice that, usually when guys go into a falsetto, you identify it immediately. I'm one of those guys. When I go into a falsetto, and I very very rarely do anything falsetto, I'm the power tenor type. And but for John Anderson and uh to just have those highs and that intensity, man, it grabbed me. It just grabbed me, and I was a Yes fan from that point on.
Uh,
Not to mention Steve Howe, one of my
oh,
favorite guitar players of all time.
Steve Perry doing a big journey thing. By the way, when I was Toto just came into town, and I went downstairs, and I was the only people. My son and I. He's a drummer, very very good drummer. He was. We were going down to see Toto, right? And I walked by the dressing room, Journey's dressing room, and I saw all the pictures of the band in the dressing room. Toto had nothing, and I remember going, "There lies in there, ready to go on stage." And I mean, I'm a radio guy. I'm backstage a lot, but there was just something about going. Sean's back there, Jonathan, who I've talked to, and I'm going greatness. But I know that, and Arnell does a great job as a vocalist. It's hard to pull that shit off. It really is. Even for you, that's not easy. Not anyone can walk
No,
in and play
no,
Kansas. It's just not going to happen.
no.
But Steve Perry,
Okay, I'll probably upset a lot of Kansas fans by saying this, but I attribute the development of my voice probably a little more to Steve Perry than I do Steve Walsh. Uh, when I was a teenager, I had the cassette deck of Evolution in my car, and I played that to death and sang that to death. There's something you need to check out. I don't know if you've seen this. There's a guy on YouTube, and I believe it's titled "You Can't Do This," and he's dissecting Steve Perry's voice, and he has examples of Steve Perry not only live but in the studio. And you listen to songs like "Sweet and Simple" or a song by Journey off of Escape that I've always used as an example of the ultimate vocal control is a song called "Lay It Down." If you're familiar with that song, to me that's just crazy talent uh, for Steve to pull that off. It was really a, a great a great role model for me. Uh, he was really really great uh, to me, and I studied him. I dissected him. I tried to emulate him. And when you're trying to emulate guys like Steve Perry and Steve Walsh and Brad Delp, you're going to condition your voice. But boy, Steve Perry, just who would not want him as their lead singer?
why do you think Steve Walsh was such the perfect singer for Kansas in during his tenure?
Even the other members of Kansas, if you watch the documentary Miracles Out of Nowhere, they talk about, going to New York and recording that first album. And, everyone goes out to lunch or dinner or something, and Steve stays back to cut his vocals, and everyone comes back and it's like, oh my God, who the heck is this guy? Where did this guy come from? And I would have that same feeling, you know, because, sure, they're playing all those maybe not the most exquisite bars in Kansas, where everything's live. Back then, everything was live. There was no such thing as in-ear monitors back then. Everything was floor monitors and Marshall stacks and live drums that was really loud. So were you really hearing everything back then playing a bar that you would in the studio? Of course not. So imagine, the guys in Kansas going to record that first album and hearing Steve and just hearing that power and that range. And I have something for you to do. Put on the studio version of Dust in the Wind. And when it starts to fade, start turning up the volume and try to keep that level and listen to Steve's ad libs during the fade out. It's amazing. And I wish Jeff Glicksman, I wish he wouldn't have faded that out so quickly. I wish he would have let Dust in the Wind go a little bit longer, because Steve is in the stratosphere, clear as a bell, simply amazing. Give it a listen.
What's the VIP experience? What's that look like for fans with Kansas?
Oh, well, not only are you sitting up close and personal, don't throw anything at the lead singer. He doesn't like that. But it's funny. I'm not going to mention this band's name, but a friend of mine that lives just outside of San Francisco went to another band's VIP meet and greet, and she was really disappointed that they rushed her in, took a picture, rushed her out, never talked to anyone in the band. And I have 25 years of truck driving under my belt, so I understand that and appreciate more than people know. You spent your hard-earned money to come see Kansas. I'm going to do every single thing I can to give you the best experience, and especially the VIP. You come in, take a picture with us. We want to joke around with you. We want to make you feel like part of the band for that few moments. We look at you as our friend. And I appreciate people that spend their hard-earned money to come see this band. I can't stress that enough. So I like to make it personal and just have fun. I love making people laugh in the meet and greet. I'm always clowning around.
See, you're still a fan. That's the thing. You remember what it's like.
Absolutely. And I am still a fan of many other bands too, and I'm still a fan of Kansas. Just I happen to be the lead singer now. It's kind of crazy.
By the way, you mentioned trucking. Outside of music, what are you? I mean, obviously you're a damn good trucker, but is there anything else outside of music you're really good at?
Well, I'm trying to be a really good mechanic now.
How long has that been going on?
Not long. I've always had a love affection for cars and stuff. I've always been like a closet classic car guy, but I recently acquired a 1968 Corvette with a 327, and I am just loving working on this thing. And I'm going to tear this thing down to the frame and restore it myself. So anybody who's willing to give me any tips, PM me on Facebook. So that's really been my love of late outside of music. Music can be rewarding and frustrating all in the same day. You're playing drums. Someday you sit down at the drums and things just whip, you're feeling it. Other days it's drudgery. It's the same thing with me. Sometimes I sit down at the piano and the ideas are just coming one right after another. I can't hit the record button fast enough. Other days it's just not there and you can't force it. And that's when I'll go out to the garage and work on the car, and I do that for a couple hours, come back in the house, and I have a whole new set of mindset.
The cars thing, to me, that sounds invigorating. That's connecting with the younger part of who you are. That
Right.
guy still lives in you.
Absolutely. And I'm I'm not a couch potato. I'm the farthest thing from. Uh, my better half always says, "You never sit down. You're always doing something," and I am. I always have to be doing something. I want to squeeze everything I can out of every second that I have.
Remember, Rocky Street Book is where we put all our full-length videos. Rocky Street Music, our other channel, is for the shorter videos, the little snippets. If you want to make a donation to the channel, there's a PayPal link in the description. Join our Patreon, get early access to our videos. Or go to our swag store. You can buy a Rocky Street Book or a Rocky Street Music t-shirt, a coat, a cap, even a phone cover. And subscribe to our channel, share our videos, like them, and comment on them as well. I'm John Bowden. This is Rocky Street Book. Take care.